Hello and welcome to Do Mind Me. Today we are going to be discussing something called Alexithymia, which literally translates to without words for emotions. So I got asked an interesting question because I have Alexithymia. They asked, how does feeling feel like for you? Now, if you think about that question for a little bit, you'll find that it's not all that easy to actually answer. So, in the way that I usually do, I tried to come up with a metaphor that could find some kind of common ground, because without common ground, there would be no shared understanding. Let me explain something called the double empathy problem. I swear I'll get back to the metaphor in just a second. The double empathy problem is where two people don't have foundational experiences that they can use to come to some sort of common agreement or perception of the world. Consider, for example, one person who grew up in a really secure family, supportive parents and the like, and another person who grew up in an unsupportive or even anti-supportive environment where they have a low sense of security around the world or about the world. The result of these two foundational experiences is that both people see the exact same world through lenses that just one person can't imagine the other. Okay, so these two people who have really divergent worldviews can't come to any sort of consensus about reality because, for example, neither one can agree that people should generally be trusted or should generally not be trusted. That's an easy enough example to think about. But when you consider something that's happening entirely in your head, for example, emotions or memories, it's much harder to come to a consensus about what something like an emotion means or what it feels like. So that's the double empathy problem and why it makes things so tricky and why this metaphor hopefully bridges that gap. So the basic metaphor that I promised. You have a prism, the thing that bends light. Light in, rainbow out. Now in this metaphor, pure light that comes into the prism is an objective experience. No one is actually experiencing it yet. It comes into the prism and starts bending already into a slightly visible rainbow. The prism is the person's unconscious. It then, the light, then leaves the prism and comes out as a rainbow that is visible to everyone, including the conscious mind. Now, the rainbow that comes out might be filled with reds or yellows or blues, and those would represent how much of a particular experience has anger, happiness, sadness. But I've found that these guys are, or the analogy of comparing rainbows of one color to rainbows of another color is a little bit simplified. So I'm going to try and describe things using this guy over here. What this is doesn't actually matter. If you know, shout out. Otherwise, I'm not elaborating. Consider the complexity of this image. It's the rainbow that actually comes out of, let's say, your love prism, a neurotypical person's complicated, interconnected experience of what love feels like. There are so many different patterns and different colors all blending with each other into this complicated feeling that you can't actually describe because of how rich it is. You have to experience it. Now, let's swap this out for someone who is neurodivergent or has alexithymia. This is a much, much simpler, almost cataract-looking version of that same image, where all you see is the simplified round shape that is a rainbow. Now, when you are looking through things as someone with alexithymia, your prisms aren't they're not transparent glass. They may be misted, they may be missing, they may have distortions in them, there may be lensing effects, who knows. But what you get out is this much more blurry version of an emotion. And that is why it's often so tricky to compare. Well, this is the rich version, this is the faded version, but we're experiencing the same thing. Why can't we agree on what it feels like? You can describe the fact that, oh, I'm experiencing love, but it's really, really muted by comparison. Now, the part where things get really tricky is that we don't all have just one prism each, because we don't all experience just one emotion or experience one event through one lens. So consider you really love someone. That's this beautiful thing here. Now they cheat on you. So you feel betrayal. And that is this much more distorted, dark shape over here. It's unpleasant and it tears you up on the body and in the mind. For a neurotypical brain, we would then say, okay, there are two prisms. They're both processing different emotions because, let's say, you still love the person who betrayed you. The light from both prisms come out and overlay on top of each other. And you end up with this third shape that is mostly betrayal, but you can see on the edges that there's faint residual energy from that initial gut feeling of love. Now, the reason I've used these two is to show that it's still visible when things cross over each other, when emotions cross over each other. But if I were to go back to this simplistic or this blurred version of alexithymic love, if you grayscaled this, there wouldn't be much of a blurring. You would just kind of have the same, you wouldn't be able to really distinguish between one emotion and the next, and it would kind of just get dominated by one feeling or the other without being able to point to where one begins, or you wouldn't be able to point to even where one begins, let alone where they both share common ground. So that's the real trouble with alexithymia, is that you're overlaying blurred images on top of blurred images. And that's my metaphor for alexithymia. I hope that helps you better explain to other people how feeling feels like to you, or helps you relate to other people who are feeling differently or experience feelings differently to you. So with that, goodbye. Thank you for watching. And remember, do mind me, because everyone is worth listening to.